federal budget deficit is on the rise. The total for 2016 estimated to reach $590 billion. That is according to the Congressional Budget Office. Well, the Obama administration is handing over the problem to the next president.
So there's certainly a lot of money that can be saved, and this will be a challenge that the next president, the next Congress will have to do.
So good luck to him or her. Here now is Steve Moore, Trump campaign economic advisor and Fox News contributor. Steve, we have talked about this before. There is tons of blame to go around to everybody. I mean, everybody's track record on the deficit and on this continued spending is terrible. Republicans, Democrats, nobody in this election is talking about shrinking the size of government, about spending less, or about cutting entitlements. What's the deal, Steve Moore?
Well, you know, first of all, let's talk about that $600 billion deficit, because if this were a real recovery, Melissa, we would be seeing the deficit falling. You know, that's what happens when the economy gets better, is you spend less and you take in more revenues. This is the first time we're actually seeing a recovery where the budget deficit is going up. And what that suggests, and the reason the deficit is going up primarily, is because the economy's been only growing at 1% for the last 9 months, and that just doesn't generate enough tax revenues. I've always believed...
You're talking about the incremental change, which I totally get and respect, and I hear what you're saying, but the bulk of what we owe that we are passing on to our children is about entitlement. And until somebody attacks that, it doesn't make a dent of difference.
Well, I mean, look, growth is critical. You know, if you get the growth up, every time we raise the growth rate by 1 percentage point, we reduce the debt over 10 years by $2 trillion. So you can't get from here to there no matter how much you cut these programs until you get back to
after that.
Now here's the now here's the thing. I get tired of people saying Trump doesn't want to go after the entitlements. The one major entitlement that's growing like weeds right now is Obamacare. That's become the latest and worst entitlement program, and Donald Trump has said very clearly and consistently, we're going to repeal Obamacare, we're going to put in place something that isn't going to fall apart, that's going to give consumers choices, and it's going to save money. Then entitlement, that's one of the major entitlement programs. On some of these others,
Social Security, welfare, Medicare, and Medicaid. What do we do about that?
Okay, so... Well, are you asking me as a Trump advisor or Steve Moore, the economist?
Because, well, does Trump have any sort of a solution? I think he hasn't really tackled that yet. Maybe it's something he's going to illuminate at a later date. Has he said anything about those issues?
What he has said, Melissa, is first we have to get the economy moving again. And once we get the economy stabilized, we're going to talk about what we can do on Social Security and Medicare. And frankly, I think that's the right thing to do. Nothing matters if we don't get 3 to 4% growth. I mean, you just can't cut your way to a balanced budget.
Steve, do you think he has the will to cut these programs that are so far out of control, or is it like wrapping your lips around the third rail of politics? And he's not going to cut those things just like nobody else is going to cut those things, and we're just all going to hell in a handbasket?
Well, I want to add something that you left out, which is we have endorsed something called the penny plan. And you know that, Melissa, that's cut a penny out of every program for 4 or 5 years each year, and you do that and you save trillions of dollars. It's really that simple. So that's a big part of our solution. We're going to make NATO pay more for their own European defense, programs like that. We're going to take some of those entitlement programs and shift those to the states. You know, this was the 20-year anniversary of welfare reform. Welfare reform was one of the most successful programs we've seen in Washington in 50 years. Obama has eviscerated those reforms. Donald Trump is going to put back some of those work requirements that get people off of welfare back into the workforce where they can actually earn a living.
Okay.
Why are you so skeptical? I mean, that's important.
Because we have to actually tackle the big programs. If we're ever going to get control of this deficit and shrink the size of government, you have to really tackle the big programs.
We have 44 million people on food stamps. 44 million people on food stamps.
Got to raise the Social Security age, or we've got to cut Medicaid and Medicare.
Okay. Well, we can talk about that.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
Also, why not let some of that money into personal private accounts so that young people actually get a good deal on their money? Now, there's one for you.
Now you're talking my language, Steve Moore.
All right.
Thank you. Next time.
That's Steve Moore talking, not Donald Trump.
Yeah.